All right, it's Mark Edge here, and I'm with Angela McArdle. Angela, you're the former head of the Libertarian Party. I don't know, chairman of the Libertarian Party. Is that right? Chairperson?
Yes.
I think you really did something special with the Libertarian Party during your tenure. And what I mean by that is that the Libertarian Party has always been irrelevant. And I think that the vast majority of Americans probably still consider the Libertarian Party to be irrelevant.
Yep.
However, this last election, 2024, you made the Libertarian Party not irrelevant. And I use it the negative for a reason. Not to say relevant, because I don't know, but not irrelevant. Trump lost by a margin in some states that was the amount that the Libertarians got as far as votes in 2020. The Libertarians were important in that election. Trump recognized this, an adroit politician that he is, said, I'm going to get those Libertarians. He came to you and said, hey, how can I get the Libertarians? You said, well, free Ross, I believe was your first words.
Yep. I said, so we were at Mar-a-Lago having dinner. I got invited to Mar-a-Lago, and I said, if you come to our convention, because he wanted to come speak at our convention, I said, I think if you walk out on stage and you say that you are going to free Ross Ulbricht, everyone is going to lose their minds. They're going to scream. They're going to vote for you. And the Bitcoiners, they're also going to vote for you, and they're going to give you their money. And he said, who's Ross Ulbricht? I'll do it. I'll free him. I love freeing people. I'll walk out on stage and I'll say, free Ross Ulbricht. Mic drop.
And that's what he did.
Yes.
He now, by the way, he offered to give Ross Ulbricht clemency on day one. It was kind of day two, depending on how you count the days.
36 hours. I was counting every minute.
36 hours. And when he said that, my son and I leapt to our chairs and began to scream at the top of our lungs in a room full of people screaming at the top of their lungs. It was really like that. I'm going to have to give him pretty high marks for what he's doing. I would say he freed Ross Ulbricht on day one, the first complete day, and he gave him a pardon. And as far as, Bitcoin and the United States, all the prosecutions and the crazy FBI chasing people down stuff has stopped.
Like Bitcoin prisoners, crypto hostages, there's a lot of different phrases, but I mean, they're basically casualties of Biden's war on crypto. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because so many people on the left are like, Trump is a fascist, he's this, he's that. And I think he's really a big softie. And he just loves freeing people. And I think that it's a really nice counterpoint just culturally to see the president doing this when we have so much, I don't know, violence happening. At least that's what it looks like on social media. Social media is just every day I'm reading about a new person getting murdered and a race war, and it feels like we're in a Cold War in the country. And so at least we have the president saying innocent people go free.
Yeah, I love that about him too. I mean, to me, that's a soft-hearted thing. And, I think that the most pardoning president prior to Biden is 900 pardons, and Biden's 9,000. I don't have the numbers sitting here in front of me, but it's an incredible difference. And Biden gave these weird pardons that are for anything that they did for this period of time, they're pardoned, which I don't know if it's legal. I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, how are we going to check that?
Yeah, I don't know. The auto pin pardons, and then some of them were sort of I was like, that guy deserves a pardon. Sometimes, people will read about Ross Ulbricht and they'll think, oh, what a heinous person, murder for hire. They don't know anything about it. So I try to just not be too judgy on the ones that I don't know about. Fauci for prison. But some of the others where people were accused of violent crime, I don't know the details. And I try to just keep that in mind before I open my mouth.
As far as any individual case goes, I'm not a journalist. I'm just saying that if you voted Democrat, 4 out of the last 5 times, and you're mad at Trump today, and you go after him based on pardons, you're a hypocrite. I mean, I try not to take sides with politicians. I will admit, Trump 45 was my favorite presidency of my lifetime. Really like that. And I'm still sort of deciding how I feel on Trump 47. Biden was... I like that he let Julian Assange go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
As far as the violence goes in the United States, I don't know. I haven't looked at the statistics recently, but we had been on a long downward trajectory as far as violent crime went.
Yeah.
But there have been some really awful cases. So my mom watches Fox News, and specifically she likes Laura Ingraham.
Okay.
And Laura loves to talk about the most recent crime committed by an illegal alien. I don't know what the percentage of crime committed by illegal aliens per capita is then compared to U.S. citizens. I can tell you there's plenty of U.S. citizens who commit plenty of crimes. I think that by and large, the issue is, and I've said it many times, and I'm going to say it again, I was just in UAE, the problem is our immigration policy. You cannot have a welfare state and free immigration. You cannot have both of those.
Yeah.
You must either exclude people or you must not give away a bunch of stuff for free. And here's the example I like to use. If you go out on your front porch every day and you put out a bowl of cat food for your cat, and soon stray animals are coming and eating that cat food, and you go outside and you rage at the stray animals in order to get them to go away, but you don't change your habit of going out and putting out the cat food, you obviously are an insane person. And that's what the U.S. immigration policy is. It's an act of insanity. There's some people who are legitimately angry that people come here who we wish we didn't have. And the reason they're coming here is for policies, the free stuff, the bowl of cat food, whatever it might be. You just need to set up the bowl of cat food properly, and then you'll get good people. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're not paying much attention to it, but the United Arab Emirates is doing immigration correctly. I think it's 9 out of 10 of the population is in the Emirates are not citizens. And they're there, they're working, they're opening businesses, they're doing all kinds of things. And the reason is because if you go to the Emiratis and you don't have money to support yourself, you're going to starve.
Yeah. We can't relate to that, Like in the United States, it's like, oh, but we're such a prosperous country, therefore everybody should get everything for free because that's somehow compassion.
We can't school the world, and really not WIC or EBT cards or any of that stuff. It's the local, on-the-ground public school in America. The worst school in any given jurisdiction is always a government school.
That's the illiteracy rates are out of control.
I was in Mexico City, and I ended up at a restaurant next to a Latin American businessman. He was from Spain, but he worked in Latin America. And we were talking about, for whatever reason, we got on the topic of who to hire and who not to hire, because he was hiring from all these different areas. And he was a Spanish speaker, and I speak rudimentary Spanish, so it's in part just practicing, mostly. But for some reason, people like to talk issues with me, so fine, we'll talk about issues. And Puerto Ricans came up in this conversation. I did not initiate this conversation, mind you. I did not say anything about Puerto Ricans, positive or negative. But, his assessment was, no, you, Americans, have ruined the Puerto Ricans.
Wow.
They are not worth employing, and you did it with your welfare. Now, this is the assessment of a man who's from Spain, where the welfare state is so high. He's moved to Latin America, right? Like, he's just of the opinion that these countries that just give people things have created a problem. And we see it everybody knows it because of the national park bear problem. You go to the national park, there's a little sign up that says, please don't feed the bears. They become dependent, and then they can't forage for themselves. Then, when we don't give them enough food, they go and tear the dumpsters up. They rip the tires off people's. They're angry. They're angry because they're not getting their free stuff anymore. They're completely useless. You can't make a bear who's gotten used to McDonald's garbage suddenly go back to eating berries and honey in the woods.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it anymore. They're done with the hard life because it's harder to be a wild animal than it is to be a domestic one, which interesting when you think about the belief that animals love being wild. They should be out in their environment. You shouldn't do that with an animal. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether that's true.
I don't know that.
I know it's not.
I think young people need responsibility so that they can find meaning in their lives. Yeah. And then I see right-wing reactionaries sort of adopting this progressive lens. And they're like, well, if all the leftists are getting theirs, it's time for me to get mine. I want my healthcare too. And I'm like, no, my friend, like that's not the way to fix this.
Yeah. Government healthcare has little to no effect on any longevity. You can't increase the average lifespan, or at least when government healthcare was tried in the RAND study in the 90s, over the course of a decade, and you can look this up, RAND, R-A-N-D, study, and you will see that there was literally no effect to paying for people's health care, because the length of time that you live is, it's by genetics and a variety of other things, but by and large, it's dietary issues. Do you smoke? I get that that's not a diet, but you consume it. What's your diet look like? Any variety of things, and this is what matters.
Yeah, are you taking care of yourself?
Right, and the things that you do in your youth, your body will forgive you in a way, but you cross that 35, 40-year-old threshold and you still got some really crappy habits like drinking, smoking, and eating whatever you want, and that's it.
I think that's what it really boils down to, is you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah, it's responsibility.
Yeah.
People love to talk about freedom. Nobody wants to talk about responsibility.
Mentally, spiritually, physically, if you're not taking care of yourself, that's how you get in these situations.
When I was young, I had a practice. Is every day I would start my day with, call it a prayer, call it a meditation, however you want to, understand it. And I would look at 4 areas of my life. I'd say, what am I going to do today to grow myself mentally? What am I going to do today to grow myself physically? What am I going to do today to grow myself emotionally? And what that kind of ended up being is how am I going to protect my peace? And then what am I going to do to grow my pocketbook or grow my wealth? What am I going to do to increase that area? And, that practice over the course of a couple of years was really meaningful. I believe it was the foundation for whatever success I may enjoy today. I don't do that same thing now. Maybe it would continue to have the same sort of effect, but I believe that it kind of levels out. But could be wrong. Any kind of discipline for a young man is a good discipline. I can tell you that much.
I like it. It. Well, I think that's awesome. That's good advice.
Yep.
Like in the UAE, did you get a sense of like homelessness and violence or anything?
They certainly have crime. It's lower as far as incidents in the United States, but that's because they punish crime hard. I have some interesting thoughts on this. And while I don't think 3 strikes you're out works, so this was a policy from the 90s where basically you take a person who's committed a crime. If they committed 3 felonies, then the next one is a habitual crime, and it is amplified by some percentage. The problem with that is that, let's say you get a drug dealing crime. Okay, so you're out on the corner selling, what did they sell in the 90s? Crank? I don't know. And then they lock you up. You're locked up for a year and you get back out. And then you smoke some weed while you're on probation. Well, that's a violation of probation. You're going back to jail. And then you get out and, you commit something else that's a minor felony. I understand that minor and felony shouldn't go together, but they do. They do. Because police won't do anything about misdemeanors anymore, so the legislators make everything a felony. And then at that point, you're a habitual offender, and I don't think that works. However, somebody's floated a new proposal on Twitter that I looked at, and I've thought about it, and I've run it through my mind, and I don't have a particular problem with it. If you've been convicted of a violent crime 3 times, I believe it's 60% if you were to eliminate, these folks, lock them up for a long time. 60% of the violent crime would disappear.
I like making it violent crime. I think that seems a lot better, because then we're skipping out on things that tons and tons of people do across the nation and no one goes to prison for because it's culturally normalized and no one gets hurt. Like basically victimless crimes, like smoking weed. We miss legislative traps that way. The other thing that really blows my mind is the other thing I see on social media is you see these people who commit these heinous violent crimes and then you look at their rap sheet and it's like this person's been catch and released 60 times, 70 times. I don't understand I don't understand how that works. I don't get it. I know people who've committed one crime and gotten locked
book's
up,
thrown
and they're
at 'em,
like,
right?
never again, never
Yeah.
again. There's no
I don't
lesson,
know.
right?
I think it's very confusing too, but I just have to believe the story as it's presented. And my answer to that would be is first, it's the bail situation. A lot of times they, get out. Just because they've been arrested doesn't mean the crime goes through because the DA thinks it's not as important enough or they've been overloaded or whatever the situation. So the guy who slits the throat of the Ukrainian woman, is it on a bus or a
train,
metro?
I think.
Yeah. North Carolina?
Yep, Charlotte.
Yeah. Terrible crime, awful to see. And this obviously mentally ill man has a rap sheet of, I think, something where we're near arrests. I doubt every one of them was something so awful, but we can see what it presages. And I think that we have the judicial system in the United States has lost sight of its founding premise, which was a speedy trial. And, at this point, speedy trials don't exist. I don't understand why lawyers waive them over and over again, but they don't exist.
Well, where's the 3 strikes rule? So it doesn't even work.
Yeah.
3 strikes doesn't even work.
I don't know. It just feels like we've lost the narrative as far as the judicial system goes. I'd like to hear somebody who works within the judicial system to come up with a solution rather than talk show hosts trying to posit these things. But I personally like the 3 violent crimes, and I don't know that I would give anyone a life sentence because I feel like a point. So generally when somebody's 35 years and older, they're not going to commit a crime. There are those that do, and of course they could go get a job and, be useful. But if you were to release somebody at, say, 65 years old, how long before they're going to go to a nursing home, a state-run nursing home,
Yeah.
and then be a terror to the nursing home staff? So I think those people are probably better to just keep in the prison where, they do have prisons for nursing,
They
for an
do.
aging convict population.
They do. It just seems it's if someone commits armed robbery or a violent crime in their youth and they're locked up for 25 years, it seems like there's going to be a better opportunity for them to get out and behave themselves if they've mostly behaved themselves in prison. I don't see like a lot of people getting out when they're senior citizens and going on bank robbing sprees. Like, I don't like the idea of people dying in prison. That's pretty demoralizing.
I work with a charity called Project 180, and they work with men, largely, who are coming out of prison.
Yeah.
And these guys, I've never met a more positive group of people in my life. I like hanging out with these guys because although they're starting low, their trajectory is going exactly the right direction.
Yeah.
They understand what it takes to go from where they are to where they're not. And most of them are dealing with drug problems. And, the one slip can really put you into a bad situation there. And whatever the case may be, everybody knows the score when they get out of prison.
Yep.
You don't have to be as good as you were before you got locked up. You have to be way better than you were before you got locked up in order for that not to happen again. People are looking at you. People wonder about whether or not you're going to return, and the statistics aren't always with you.